members, staff, and other speakers by name. Please speak clearly and state your name before giving comments or remarks. Persons participating via Zoom with their cameras enabled are reminded that their activities are visible to viewers. Members participating by Zoom wishing to speak should physically raise their hand and unmute their mic when called upon. Members should mute their mics when done speaking. Citizens participating by Zoom wishing to speak should use the Raise Hand feature or dial *9 participating via phone, and the chair or staff will call upon them at the appropriate time. Citizens will have 3 minutes to speak. After 3 minutes, staff will lower their hand and mute their mic. Participants via phone will be called upon by the last 4 digits of their phone number. It is requested that public speakers state their names and organization, but providing such information is voluntary. Written public comments received in accordance with the teleconferencing special notice for public comment guidelines are printed on the meeting agenda. If authors of the written correspondence would like to speak, they should raise their hand and the chair will call upon them at the appropriate time. All written correspondence received after that and during the meeting will be entered into the record. A roll call vote will be taken for all action items. Thank you for participating in a meeting of the Contra Costa Transportation Authority.
Thank you. Thank you, Ying. And Jackie, would you please take the roll call?
Yes, Member Barnes.
Present.
Thank you. Member Burgess. Member Braxton. Member Carlson.
Here.
Member Franklin. Member Horta. Oh, sorry, I see her coming back in right now. Just 1 second.
Sorry, I was having trouble.
Oh, thank you, Ruby. Okay.
I'm here.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Member Hirsch. Member Levin. Member McCrary.
Here.
Thank you. Member Meyer. Member Sauce. Member Thompson.
Yeah.
Member Toth.
Here.
Thank you. Member Xavier. Member Xavier, you're on mute.
Here.
Thank you. Vice Chair Haskew.
Here.
Thank you. Chair Geringer.
Here.
Okay, and we do have quorum with members Burgess, Braxton, Franklin, Hirsch, Levin, Meyer, and Sauce absent.
Okay, and we just have a quorum now?
Yes,
or
we do.
Okay, great. Thank you all for being here. So the next item on the agenda is our public comment, and we have an added statement to our opening for the public comment. The Contra Costa Transportation Authority does not condone hate speech in any form. We continually strive to make life better for all members of our community and create an atmosphere where everyone feels a sense of safety and belonging. We ask that anyone who wishes to speak does so with civility, respect, and kindness for others. And so with that, Jackie, have we received any written public comment?
We have not received any written public comment.
Are there any members of the public who wish to speak during public comment on an item that is not part of the agenda? If so, please raise your hand and we will call upon you. And I'm not seeing any hands up or technical members of the public. So we will move on. Our next item on the agenda is our consent calendar. Are there any changes or comments from any members of the committee? I'm seeing shaking of heads and no hands raised. So do I have a motion to approve? Are there any members of the public who would like to speak to the consent calendar? Not seeing that either. So do we have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I will move to approve the consent calendar.
Thank you.
I second. Yeah.
I heard 2 seconds. Jackie, did you get? So we have a motion by Vice Chair Haskew and a second by, I think, Member Xavier.
Yes.
The one I heard. Okay, thank you. And Jackie, will you do the roll call vote?
Member Barnes.
Yes.
Member Burgess. Member Braxton. Member Carlson. Member Horta? Can't hear you. Member Horta, are you there?
No, she was having trouble.
Yeah, I can come back to her. Okay, Member Hirsch? Member Levin? Member McCrary?
Yes.
Member Meyer? Member Sauce? Member Thompson?
Yes.
Member Toth?
Yes.
Thank you. Member Xavier?
Aye.
Vice Chair Haskew?
Yes.
Chair Geringer?
Yes.
And I'm going to go back to Member Horta. Can you hear us?
Yes, sorry, my desktop is not working, so I'll be on my phone.
No worries. Thank you. Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay. So this motion passes unanimously with members Burgess, Braxton, Franklin, Hirsch, Levin, Meyer, and Sauce absent.
Okay. So thank you. And now we'll move on to our regular agenda items. And the first item on our agenda is the approval to proceed with roles and responsibilities to advance to the establishment of the coordinating entities. So Rashida,
Sorry, really quick, I'd like to announce that Member
Oh.
Franklin has arrived.
great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
And we'll hand it over to Rashida.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to be giving a brief presentation on the update on the roles and responsibilities, and I'll share a slide presentation with everyone. I'm always having technical difficulties here. So, as everyone knows, based on our accessible transportation study that was conducted in 2021, there were several items that were developed in that study. Besides identifying about 22 transportation gaps or strategies, there was also a need that was identified for a coordinating entity, the ability to have a central hub for information gathering, gap analysis of services, but more importantly, an opportunity to help coordinate with the existing transportation agencies in order to fill those gaps. There were guiding principles that were developed over the years. There was the idea that they would develop a hybrid model. There were consulting services that were engaged in this process. The task force was developed in order to engage this process, and also the working group. So what has been accomplished so far between then and now, which is 2023 December? Time has gone by so fast because when this thing started, this effort started, it started right on the heels of COVID. And more than ever, there was definitely a need for identifying that transit agencies and transit opportunities and gaps in services, they just do not stand alone. More than ever, we realized that we needed each other and we needed to collaborate more closely in order to roll out services for our Contra Costa residents. So we clarified the unique value that a coordinating entity would bring, which is being focused on system coordination. That is one of the focus, advocacy, fund development, cost reduction, not necessarily a repeat or a redundancy of services, but how can we coordinate so that we could reduce the cost? And of course, provide some leadership. We did define the core functions of the CE, being able to serve as a central information source. That's really a big deal. Everybody here who's dealt with transportation agencies know that there are several times when passengers or potential passengers call and they're looking for different services that maybe the entity that they're calling does not provide. So who do they call? A passenger or potential passenger could at any given time call 3 or 4 different services. And that can be very obstructive, and it's definitely not as accessible as it could be. And the other thing, the partnerships included 2 CTA, and so the idea of developing an office of accessibility and equity and somebody to be able to liaise between the different agencies was also part of the program, and that meant hiring a program manager. We won't mention who that is. So, after breaking all of that down, the core functions and the roles and responsibilities, there was a lot of time spent not only doing surveys with the transit agencies, with the public, with the task force, with the working group. What would these core functions be? Because as was mentioned earlier, if there are going to be cost reductions, having redundancy systems or trying to reinvent the wheel has always not been cost effective, so to speak. So what is the coordinating entity going to do that some of the agencies are maybe not already doing? Or how can we enhance what we already have? So as I mentioned earlier, serve as a central information source, facilitate system coordination, assess the needs and recommend transportation systems improvements or expansions, develop programs where necessary, especially where gaps in services are there. And that means coordinating with the different transit agencies that already exist, both big and small, and also mobilizing resources, pooling the resources together so that we can leverage them in order to roll out service. After those surveys were done, it was clear as we're pooling everyone together that there were certain functions that it was not necessary for the coordinated entity to do. As I mentioned, we did not want to waste resources by having unnecessary repetitive services, especially when we have capable transportation services out there that serve certain needs. We specifically want to focus on the needs that are not there and actually filling those gaps. So after serving the transit agencies, we also got their input, because the whole goal of this entire project is collaboration, getting everybody's input so that we can all be on the same page when providing services. So some of what the operators told us is that, is it necessary to operate service? Well, unless there's no operator there to do so, there are very capable service operators that are there that have specific needs, that serve specific needs. So what can we do to work with them to fill in gaps? Dictate policy. And this actually went to the working group, and there was some misunderstanding about what was meant by dictating policy, the difference between dictating programs, standardizing programs, and policy. We know that all of the transit agencies, based on the current funding streams that they receive, they're policies that they cannot avoid. And so when working with them, there's no reason to step on their toes when they have policies that they already have to adhere by. And how about determining how existing services are provided? Again, a lot of that is dictated by policy and have to roll out the way that they do roll out. But collaborating with them and enhancing those systems to fill in gaps is something that can clearly be done, because over the past couple of years in COVID, some of these enhancements or collaborations have definitely proved to be beneficial. And also dictate software solutions. Again, a lot of the transit agencies have software solutions that they're already using, that they use very well. So what can we do about potentially filling out gaps? What softwares are we not taking advantage of in order to fill out gaps? And also having mutual respect for the funding streams and the authorities of each agency. Our goal here is to collaborate as much as possible, thus filling the fabric of transportation options that we have for all our Contra Costa residents. So after this extensive and exhaustive process, we have come to some agreement about how the roles and responsibilities should roll out. And as a result of that, this is actually a huge win for all the transit agencies, but more importantly, a huge benefit for all the transit agencies, big and small, whether you're nonprofit, whether you're public, whether you're private and you participate in providing transportation services, getting on the same page so as to provide these services for our residents has been a big win for the residents and can do nothing but benefit the transit agencies. So as a result, staff is seeking the approval of the working group to approve the roles and responsibilities. If it is approved, then it'll definitely go to the board. I must state that even though we have put an exhaustive list here, there's always ongoing conversations with all the transit agencies. And as this collaboration continues, there will continue to be conversations about how we can continue to benefit each other in order to roll out services. And with that recommendation, I'll be more than happy to take questions before an action can be taken.
Great, thank you. I see that Member Toth has her hand up, and Debbie, why don't you kick us off with questions or comment?
Yes, it's probably both. So good job. Thank you. Did Rita leave us? She's back. Sorry, I somehow am getting notifications. Maybe everybody is, but I feel like I need to open the door when somebody's knocking. So first, thank you, Rashida. I want to comment on the last slide related to the CE should not. So if we take this to the letter of the law, with the all of the things listed there that it should not do, the CE will not do anything to improve service delivery coordination, policy, or anything related to what the transit providers are doing. And they all have their own rules and their own policies and their own shops, and we're going to end up where we are now. So I think we need to be specific, a little more specific around like having a checklist. I'm just thinking in my head around what it would look like to be able to say, yes, that is, there are rules, let's go with ADA, that they each have to comply with, but there are processes can do differently that we could be having conversations about. So I'm going to give a concrete example so you can understand what's in my brain, which I'm sorry, everybody, that you have to be in my brain. But ADA, let's say somebody must be functionally unable to take fixed route services. So that's what qualifies them for the service. But one transit provider may require that you get a signed 8-page document from a physician, where another paratransit provider may say that you have to come in person to a visit for us to assess you. Like, they can do that differently. We should be able to have a conversation about something they could all agree on and do the same. But according to this, we don't have that opportunity. So I want us to be very clear about where we should and can be having conversations about uniformity, better practices. So maybe it's implementation that we have conversations around. Maybe we come up with a checklist that asks, is it person-centered? Is it uniform across the board? Does it meet, like, something more needs to be done. To me, this is just a way to say status quo. So I want to be clear on how it's not that, and have a mechanism by which we can have these conversations and have it be driven by what the writer's experience is.
Okay, thank you. So if I may, at the last working group, this was actually one of the examples that was brought up. And we might have to do a little bit of wordsmithing, but what you're saying is processes, not necessarily policy. So in processes, I would agree with you. Even right now, I'm part of a group, and there's several members here on the call right now as part of the working group that are part of the Bay Area Accessible Services partnerships. And one of the things that they're working on now is standardizing that ADA eligibility process. So yes, there will continue to be conversations about standardizing process. And there's a difference between process and policy. Being able to say that somebody must be eligible to use paratransit service, that's the policy associated with it. But how the different agencies approve it, whether it's by in-person visit or whether it's by paper application only, or whether it's by a fax testing, or whether it's just by phone call, if there are 5 different agencies and they all do it 5 different ways, that's the process that's not standardized. But the actual application, that's what they have to do in order to, that's what they all have to do. So they all have to do that, even though the process is different. So what they're working on now is standardizing the process. So this does not say that because dictating policy means that you can't have conversations about standardizing process. We will always have conversations, and the coordinating entity will continue to work with them, just like MTC is working with the transit agencies on standardizing different types of processes, not just eligibility. I hope that makes sense. There's several other hands up too,
Yeah,
if
I
they need
do
to
see
add
that.
to my response.
Ying, and then John, and then Rashida, feel free to manage the Q&A queuing if you'd like.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair Geringer. I agree with what Rashida said, and there's really some distinction between policy and practice and the process. Debbie, I just want to point out, just because in this document, we spell out the roles and responsibilities, what the CE can do and should do versus what the CE shouldn't do. I don't think those 5 bullet points spells out status quo. I think from the beginning of the ATSP, the development, the approval, and the implementation work that we've been working on ever since the adoption of the ATSP, there's nothing status quo we have seen. I think this is progress. We do have to take many steps to get there. And I think I just want to highlight that's not what we're trying to do to keep status quo. That we'll be doing nothing, right? We just let it be, but we are not, just because we have to work with many partners and we have to compromise. All sides have to compromise. So we find a path forward. That's not status quo. I just want to share staff's perspective. I think, John, you're next.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I guess a couple responses to this, and this first part is going to be a little bit of a repeat of what Rashida said. We have these, agreements basically down on paper, and that the transit operators, would like this, for comfort, because it's a bit of an unknown what we're doing, and that's fine, perfectly acceptable to do that. But we have very specific programs that address some of these issues. For example, ADA paratransit eligibility and consistency. That is addressed in a separate ATSP recommendation, but that's a collaborative process, and that's another part of the ATSP. And I think there's actually a region-wide initiative going on, and that's going to plug along on its own track. So there's this seems to be drawing a line in the sand. I guess the other, I do have to express some concern with the language here, in that it might give a false impression, in that it was never our intention. It was neither discussed nor in writing that the coordinating entity or CCTA or the county was going to dictate anything to the transit operators. And when you see it here in writing, it sort of suggests that, well, this is a response to somebody coming in and trying to dictate things to the transit operators. And that was never the case. It's almost kind of like that very loaded, cliched question, when did you stop beating your wife? It's like, well, there's no good answer. There's no correct answer to that, because it was never the case. It's like, we were never going to dictate any of this. This is absolutely a collaborative effort, and it's always been that way. So we obviously we're going to agree to these. I just don't want people to come away with the impression that we're being redirected, in that we were trying to dictate or take over some policies, because that just wasn't the case. So thank you. That's all I have.
And I see Carol has her hand up. Go ahead, Carol.
Yes, I'm sorry. My internet is unstable and it kept freezing, so I turned my video off to see if that will help the situation. Thank you for the work group, for all the work you've done on this. This is great. It's a playbook for coordinating all our accessible transportation, and wonderful job. I also, as John and sometimes Rashida, participate in responding to the Emergency Operations Center for the Office of Emergency Services for Contra Costa County. And I want to make sure that they're possibly named somewhere in here as a part of the coordinating entity, whether there's a declared emergency or not. I want to make sure they're included as one of the entities that is part of the collaboration for emergency accessible transportation for evacuations or rides to heating centers or cooling centers, or whatever is going on in our community. That's it.
Great, thank you. I don't see any other hands up. Rashida, do you?
No, I don't.
Okay, so if there aren't any more questions, and I apologize for the not so ambient noise in the background. But we'll move on. If there aren't any more questions from the committee, are there any members of the public who would like to speak on this item? And I don't see hands up. Jackie, do you?
No, I don't see any.
Or do we receive any written?
Yeah.
With that, we are being asked to approve this to move it on to the CCTA Authority Board. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. And do I have a second?
I'll second it, but I'm just confirming that the modified language is also being included in it.
Could you repeat that? I'm sure everybody else heard it, but.
Okay, no problem. I'll second, but I want to make sure that some of the additional agreed upon language is included in the amendment, or is it as amended or as adjusted by the team?
Are you open to that amendment, Member Carlson?
Yeah, I think we're talking to add our emergency operations partnership. It is absolutely, yeah, that's totally acceptable.
Okay, and staff, does that work as well?
I would say that it does, just as a history, not, I don't know if it matters to anybody, but in my previous role and with them attending now, County Connection has been working diligently with the Emergency Operations Center, different roles. So it only makes sense that collaboration will continue. And all the transit agencies actually have put themselves in a position to assist in some way, shape, or form, with the most recent being COVID, from assisting with Meals on Wheels to delivering passengers, and these are not ADA passengers, to vaccine sites. I mean, we go on including transporting passengers, PUI passengers under investigation, COVID positive passengers. And so particularly just talks about the roles and responsibilities, but yes, it would cover that, because everybody could benefit from that type of coordination. So it would make sense that adding that as part of the partners, it would make sense.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion and a second. Are there any other comments?
Like the hands
Is
raised.
your hand up?
Debbie, yes, Member Toth.
Yes, thank you. I thought that Rashida had said that they would wordsmith that a little so it was more clear that we could get into conversations around process. So when member Haskew says as amended, I hope that that was part of what that amendment included. Yeah, I see nodding. Fabulous.
Yeah, I just see the comment about dictating policy as the coordinating entity is never going to dictate the policy. We're always open to collaboration, especially on the process side. So I don't know what really needs to be changed in the sense of we're already collaborating, we're committed to collaborating, we will collaborate, but we will never dictate to our providers and operators the policies they'll operate under. Doesn't mean we won't collaborate on policy adjustments if the time or the period, something comes up in the process, we go, oh, we need to have a new policy. We're going to coordinate and cooperate and talk about those things, but we'll never, this is the only way you're going to work and dictate their policy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. We can always put those in parentheses, the explanation, as a caveat. It's understood and it's documented somewhere. So the bullet point can remain the same, but we can certainly put emphases, this bit of an explanation in there that, because if one person sees it like that, maybe somebody else may see it like that. So if we can put that in parentheses, then we can certainly avoid that type of misunderstanding.
If I may, Chair Geringer. Can folks hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was going exactly the same place Rashida was. I think we could have just a blanket caveat for all of these. Any areas of joint policy overlap will be subject to a collaborative process. Just, make it abundantly clear there'll be no dictating a policy. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion by Member Carlson and a second by Vice Chair Haskew. And Jackie, I believe that you've captured what the amendments or what with the emergency operations, and then parentheses and some tweaking of language. Do we have any more comments on that, or are we ready for Jackie to take a roll call vote? And not seeing any hands up. Jackie, will you call the vote?
Member Barnes,
Yes.
Member Burgess, Member Braxton, Member Carlson,
Yes.
Member Franklin,
Yes.
Member Horta,
Yes.
Member Hirsch, Member Levin, Member McCrary,
Yes.
Member Meyer, Member Sauce, Member Thompson,
Yes.
Member Toth,
Yep.
Member Xavier,
Aye.
Vice Chair Haskew,
Yes.
Chair Geringer.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes unanimously with members Burgess, Braxton, Hirsch, Levin, Meyer, and Sauce absent.
Okay, thank you. Before we move on to the next item, Jackie, do we have a quorum with Member Franklin joining if I handed the gavel over to Vice Chair Haskew and
Yes.
Listened? And
Currently have 10, so yes, that would go down to
Okay.
9, which is exact quorum needed.
Okay, so with that, and with just a slight point of personal privilege, happy holidays to everyone if I don't come back on mic, but I think I'll go back into the other meeting that I stepped out of, and that way you won't have to listen to all the noise. So happy holidays. And Vice Chair Haskew, are you there and ready to take over?
I am, and we send the same kinds of wishes back to you and all the people at your next meeting too. So thank you. Thank you for being here. Okay, next item on our regular agenda is item 4B, an approval to recommend that the authority board approve the expansion of the means-based fare program to West Cat and County Connection as presented by Rashida.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, this is not a presentation. It's actually in your packet, but again, as we're putting all of this work into this coordinating entity, we all know that services are needed. Last month and in October, last month, WICTAC, October, it's already December. I keep saying last month. In October, WICTAC approved the in November, the authority board approved the extension of the means-based fare, which was already a 6-month pilot program with East County. And this is a fare subsidy for low-income riders. They partnered with 211, who did the fare eligibility verification, and the tickets were provided for those who were eligible under Tri-Delta's ADA program. As part of the ATSP study, this was identified as a strategy, and the goal was to ensure that this was countywide. In order to make it countywide, County Connection and West County, who serve the rest of the county, would have to get on board. And so the program, which is now extended, 211 is no longer a part of the collaboration. Actually, Tri-Delta has taken over the project fully, with approximately, the last time I checked, about 108 residents riders had signed up for the service. So it's definitely growing. When they took over, I believe it was 44 passengers, and now it's about 108 passengers. I do have Tri-Delta on the line, and they can confirm its growth. The idea was to expand this county-wide. I'm happy to say that both WestCat and County Connection, they've been working with 2CTA and also with our consultant to work out the kinks, to review some of the challenges that Tri-Delta went through in launching the program, and also streamlining the standard operating procedure in order to launch this. With this in mind, WestCat is willing to start the program in the early part of 2024 calendar year, and County Connection will be taking it to their board, I believe, as early as January. So with that in mind, staff is seeking approval from the task force to actually proceed with this program using Measure X funds, approximately $100,000 for WestCat and about $145,000 for County Connection, for a 12-month program, to a 12-month period, to expand the means-based fare program so that it is countywide. And with that, I'll be more than happy to take questions.
So I'll be looking for hands to see if there is any task force questions or comments, and or if there's anybody in the public who wishes to. Would you please indicate that you will like to participate? I'm seeing all quiet on the, excuse me. I'm seeing all quiet on the Zoom front, and so now I'm going to ask for a motion, please.
So move.
Okay, and a second. Oh, come on. Jump forward here.
Second from Barnes.
Oh, thank you, Rashidi. Okay, then we need a roll call vote, please.
Okay, Member Barnes,
Yes.
Member Burgess, Member Braxton, Member Carlson,
Yes.
Member Franklin,
Yes.
Member Horta,
Yes.
Member Hirsch, Member Levin, Member McCrary,
Yes.
Member Meyer, Member Sauce, Member Thompson,
Yes.
Member Toth,
Yes.
Member Xavier,
Aye.
Vice Chair Haskew,
Yes.
Chair Geringer. Okay, motion passes unanimously with members Burgess, Braxton, Hirsch, Levin, Meyer, Sauce, and Chair Geringer absent.
Thank you. And now we're moving on to our regular agenda item 4C, Office of Accessibility, Equity, and Coordinating Entity 2023 updated work plan. This is informational only, so I don't have to beg for firsts and seconds, and and yet again will be presented by Rashida. Rashida, are you coming in?
One moment, I was having some technical difficulty. I had wanted to bring up the workflow document.
Oh, okay. If I had any talent, I'd be just humming along and filling the gap. I don't have any talent.
Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, just try to pick this up. There are a lot of exciting things going on, so let's talk about those exciting things besides these technical difficulties having. Okay, so the updated work plan. Let me just zoom it a little bit and then share it. Everybody see, oh dear. Can everybody see my screen? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay. Wish I could zoom this a little bit better. Well, fortunately, this is just a verbal update. I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of visuals. But the update, unfortunately, let me get this out of the screen so I can actually see people's face and maybe everybody can take a look at the packet. It'll be a lot better. The update is basically one of the some of the projects that we've mentioned earlier. The Mean Space Fair program is being expanded with County Connection and WestCat, and there are other projects, strategic plan projects that are also in the works. As you know, the strategic plans were identified, about 21 of them. The goal was to not only identify the strategic plan, identify the funding source. All of it is not just from Measure X. We are looking and working hard to leverage different funding sources if they're available in order to roll out the programs, but also identify the partner. The workflow has been given to the different partners, and we have had dialogue with the different partners. A lot of it had to do with questions. Regarding the strategies, the resources needed. Some of them came back with some very good questions about how expansive will it step on policy? How long will the projects last? What are the funding sources in order to support the projects if they're rolled out. And I just wanted to make sure that the task force knew that the next project that we were going to be looking at is a countywide travel training program. And so we continue to work with the different agencies, and we'll be coming back again in order to give a further update on how these different programs are not only launching out, because now that you approve some of these programs, we will be coming back to the group with update on how these programs are proceeding. This is just a verbal update, and I'll be more than happy to take questions.
Okay, I'm looking for hands. Oh, yes, please, Rashidi, would you go first?
Rashida, thank you for that update. I may have missed it. What was the next program that you guys are going to start or we're going to be looking at?
We are at this moment exploring countywide travel training grants.
All right, thank you.
There are a couple of training programs out there, but there are also huge gaps in the travel training, and there there are not a lot of coordination. We do have individuals that want to not just travel in their service area, but across different service areas in the county. And so being able to provide a countywide travel training program gives our Contra Costa residents the flexibility and the ease to explore the entire county once they've been given tools to do so.
Okay, my other question is for Tri Delta Transit, we have multiple programs, services, mobility on demand, means-based, there's a ton of things that someone can sign up for. So it's the thought that this entity or this person or this team would be able to articulate all 15 different programs okay.
Yes. So just imagine you have one program with potentially 15 different programs, and they may be coming from a different service area. In fact, it speaks to the very heart of the coordinating entity and making sure that there is one source regarding all the information. What if the phone number they pick up is not necessarily your number they call immediately? If they know that through the coordinating entity, they can call and they can find out, oh, this is where you live, or this is where you're moving to. As a result, asking maybe a handful of questions, you determine you're actually eligible. When you're staying with your daughter in East County, for those 6 months, you're actually eligible for these types of services. Or if you're visiting this part of the county, you're eligible for these types of services. So the idea is to use this particular tool countywide to inform the passenger of the entire buffet of services that they are eligible for, how to access them, the phone number to call, what they should expect in the intake process. And so when they finally land, potentially in your service area or with your team of people, they've been given a heads up and they know exactly what they're going to be looking for once they land there. So that is absolutely correct.
Okay. Looking for any other questions or concerns? I don't see any. Is there anything from the public? Jackie? Oh,
May I add one, Vice Chair?
yes, absolutely. And go ahead, please.
Rashida and other transit operators, I think we are open. I heard some of the ideas. It's just a matter of talking to our team and just hash out those ideas. We are always looking for willing partners. It just takes time to develop those concepts and turn them into actual projects. But we are open to that. It's not the projects we will implement next year will not be just limited to the ones that's on the list. There are so many ideas where it's just a matter of time and resources to make those concepts happen.
Great, thank you. All right, I'm not seeing any additional comments, and this was for information only. So we're going to move on to item D, 4D, which is the updates on the projects. And this item is yet again informational, and yet again in charge of the projects are Rashida.
This one also is an update. I'll spill the beans on the last one because these two were so similar, and it also had to do with the workflow. A closer look at the workflow is the column in which partners have been continued to be identified. We were hoping that by the time this meeting came up, a few more would have been identified. But as I had mentioned earlier, that we did have questions coming back from the different transit operators out there. And the transit operators that I speak of are not just the the public transportation operators, but also the city-based programs, the nonprofit programs that we continue to collaborate with. All of them are going through the workflow document for two things. One, not only to identify challenges that are not on the workflow document, but also self-selecting themselves for challenges that are on the document and identifying themselves as potential partners. So again, this is something that will be coming up in upcoming meetings, where as we continue to work on these projects, you will be able to specifically see moving forward who we've been in conversation with and who have assessed their resources and their bandwidth in order to collaborate and roll out programs. It's for information only.
Thank you. Any questions and comments on this item? I'm not seeing any, and I'm assuming that that also means there is no public comment. So let's roll to actionally item 4E, accessibility. The workshop update for February 29th, 2024. Wow, this is yet again under Rashida's careful watch.
So this is really exciting. The workshop, we haven't done something like this, especially when it came specifically to accessibility, and especially when it came specifically to So the idea of the workshop is to get all the transportation providers, the board members, some riders, social service agencies, not only to discuss the challenges that we're experiencing in Contra Costa County, to document best practices that are out there. We don't know any transit agency, big, small, to just flail and not know where to turn to for ideas, for resources, for best practices. We don't need anybody spinning their wheel, not knowing where they should turn. There's a lot of knowledge and expertise with the different transportation agencies out there. So being given the opportunity to get together at a workshop to actually also hear from passengers. So the objectives is to basically put all of ourselves on the same page. We're going to be inviting is going to be from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. It's going to be hosted here at the authority at the 2CTA's office, and all of these individuals will be invited. As a result, we are looking for 2 volunteer board members. You don't have to give us your answer right here on this particular task force, but know that the invite for this has gone out. We are preparing the agenda. We are working with the different transportation agencies to hear the challenges that they're experiencing so we can put together a comprehensive workshop, which we can discover how we can continue to assist each other and put together a comprehensive transportation landscape in which nobody is sitting in their own corner, whether it's discovering funds, whether it's partnering with other transportation agencies, so that they can actually provide the services that our paratrans, our Contra Costa residents actually need. So I'm personally excited about this workshop. The goal is to have this workshop at least twice a year, but let's see how this first one goes. And we're really excited. So look for that coming down the pipeline.
Okay.
And I'll be more than happy to, I mean, John Ying, feel free to say something about this if you want, about the workshop.
Yeah, I can jump in. I'm as excited as Rashida about this. You know, a lot of these programs and even just the concepts and our approach, you know, they've been talked about really in sort of small meeting spaces like this one with folks. I think it'd be good to get it sort of out in a workshop format and, you know, and talk about it wide in the open and socialize these issues and just have an open exchange with a broader audience. So thank you, Rashida, for your leadership on this. I have a feeling I'll be saying that sort of thing quite a bit here in the future. So thanks.
Yeah, this is really exciting. We certainly have, the pandemic proved that, you know, we had some transit agencies that do really well, that were pivoting really quickly. which was great. And we have some transportation agencies or transportation providers that were really struggling and maybe even continue to struggle. So hearing and even some performances that they roll out, what are the best practices? Some of them, I've found out in just this short period of time that, certain transportation agencies, some of them know how to best use their scheduling softwares that they have, and yet you have some transit agencies that are super users with their software. How can we get them together? Teach me what you know so that, I can continue to provide, the same good service that you provide. So everybody can benefit by these leveraging of knowledge and, best practices. So I think that this will be good.
Great. I'm not seeing any additional hands and no notifications about people trying to make public comment. So I think we're going on to the next item, which is item 4F. We're breaking all records for number of items, I point out here. Item 4F is the reminder of the 2024 Accessible Transportation Strategic Plan Task Force meeting dates. This is the same schedule essentially that we've had bi-monthly and to be held on the second Thursday of every other month at 2 p.m. beginning on February 8th, 2024. This is an informational item, and I'd be interested to see if you're going to say anything more than I just did.
No, I'm not.
Okay, all righty. I'm assuming there's no additional comments or information from the public on this item. Oh, wrong. Debbie, please.
I love it when we assume. I thank you. Do I call you Chair Haskew at this moment because you're acting as chair? No, Vice
Nope.
Chair acting as Chair Haskew.
Or you can just call me Luella.
Yeah. These are in-person meetings. I just wanted to make an exclamation point about that. Is that accurate? Because I think I received an email from Jackie and one from somebody else and one from somebody else and one from somebody else, at least 4 from CCTA, that all these meetings are now going to be in person. So the reason I'm unmuting and saying that is because all of us are now going to build at least another half an hour before and after each of these meetings. So when you say that you're available for these meetings, please know you are moving to get to these meetings. So you have to build in time before and after. So I just wanted to, this is my little Debbie PSA. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you for reminding us that we are going back to the old world instead of the new world. Okay, I think that's probably it on that item.
Sorry, Vice Chair, I think Rashidi.
Oh, yes, I see them now. I looked up and I am happy. Rashidi, please go first.
No problem. Thank you. And kind of to Debbie's point, if we're going to be back in person, is there an opportunity to reevaluate the day that may fit for people to travel? Since we're not necessarily doing this all through Zoom now, should we revisit that?
I don't see why we shouldn't. If you have reservations and you think that it should be followed up on, I think it should be followed up on too. So Rashida and John, would you kind of mark your calendars to have us input how to mark our calendars?
We can, staff can work to put a poll together.
Okay.
We'll try to get that out as soon as possible. And if there is a significant change, you will distribute that information as soon as possible to see if it actually affects the calendar that has already been sent out.
Published. Okay, great. Thank
Sorry
you very
to
much.
start to throw that monkey wrench in there. I just think that if we're going to be traveling, it may be a good time for us to revisit that. That's all.
I just want to caution that this meeting has to be all pieced together with other CCTA meetings. And just want to caution, we'll do our best. We'll work with our admin team to see what can be done. I don't want to overpromise.
Yep.
Okay, good. Rita, do you have another comment?
Just following up on what Debbie and Rashidi said. For me, it's at least 2 hours each direction. to get to the meeting. Because I have to take the bus and BART and transfers and whatever. Also, on the days that we have these meetings, I have another meeting that I have to be at for my city, and it's a Recycle More meeting. That's solid waste management. So a different day may be better for me, based on what Rashidi said.
Thank you well, we're gonna test it all out and see what works best for everyone. As many people as we possibly can. I'm not seeing any additional hands, and thank you for your input. You broadened our horizons. We're moving on to correspondence and communications. Have we received any correspondence? Jackie? Anybody?
No, we have not received any correspondence.
Okay, and I have nothing to add to the communications. Last chance to make any comments, because I'm going to count down for the adjournment of the meeting. And Debbie, it's good to
I
have somebody.
couldn't let you do it. I just couldn't. I'm sorry. I love you,
know, it's
but
good to have somebody you can rely on. Yeah.
yeah, you can rely on me to extend a meeting any day.
Okay.
I do want to just elevate to this group our funding source. Well, one of our funding sources is the Measure X sales tax. And just wanting to put in front of this group, because the process for funding allocation is intricate and complicated and complex and requires community input. And I just want to make sure, we had something happen at the Board of Supervisors recently that disrupted the apple cart in funding allocation for senior and disability services. And I just want to be sure that it's on all of our radars, that this is a priority, that this accessible strategic plan not only gets implemented, but gets continued and ongoing funding. And so for those of you that have not been tracking, following, providing input, thanking Supervisor Carlson for ensuring that it continues to get funded, doing all the little things that all of us need to do to make sure that this remains a priority, and just putting it out in front of you that it needs to be regularly communicated to our Board of Supervisors. And nice that one of them's in the room to listen to me jabber. But I think that it was a moment for me where I recognized that even though we had funding allocated for this work, even though we had allocated funding for other section of work, it got pulled. It got put back, but it's just tentative. And if we're going to do miraculous systems transformation work, it costs money. And we need to make sure that we're tracking and continuing to ensure that we get the money that we need from both Measure J and Measure X to keep this work going, because the one primary excuse for not doing this historically is lack of funding. So let's not allow that to take away from our process. All right, done with my second PSA of the day. You're welcome.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to take a deep breath, look over everybody's positions and pictures, and just echo what Chair Geringer said, which is have a good, safe holiday season. And thank you very much for your attention. I think it was a little longer than usual, and so we really appreciate all your attention. And with that, we're saying adieu until February. Oh, shoot, I closed the paper. February 8th at 2 p.m. unless our research changes that answer. So we'll keep you posted. Thank you very much for your attendance, and we'll see you next time.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays, everyone.